If begging on your knees in front of a lone shark wasn't humiliating enough, imagine opening your eyes and seeing the man who abandoned you at the altar, standing there, ready to own you. Sarah never expected to fall this low. But here she was, on the dirty floor of Hector's office, her voice trembling as she whispered, "Please, just one more week. My child will die without his treatment." Hector's cold laugh echoed off the walls. And then, the door opened. She looked up, and the entire world stopped. It was Damien, the man she once called my future, the man who vanished on their wedding day. And now, he wasn't here to apologize. He was here to buy her like property. Sarah's voice trembled as it echoed through the tiny office, thick with the stench of cheap cigars and old liquor. She knelt on the grimy floor, her hands pressed together in desperation. "Please, Hector. Just a short extension, 1 week. I swear I'll pay everything back." Hector leaned back in his worn leather chair, a slow, almost entertained smile spreading across his face. He didn't answer immediately. He simply watched her, like a predator watching its prey struggle before the final bite. His 2 men stood behind him, silent, hands in their coat pockets, but their cold eyes made it clear that mercy wasn't an option here. "You think I'm running a charity, Sarah?" Hector finally spoke, his voice low and cruel. "You borrowed from me, knowing the rules. And my rules are very simple." He paused, then dragged his index finger slowly across his throat. Sarah flinched, tears filling her eyes, as her body shook uncontrollably. She tried to steady her breath, but her words came out broken. "But my child is sick," she whispered. "He needs treatment. Please, I'll do anything, just a little more time." Hector rolled his eyes, as if he'd heard that line 1,000 times. "Enough with the drama. I don't care about your kid. I care about my money." He leaned forward, a sly grin forming on his face. "However," a chilling silence followed, "there is another way for you to repay me." Sarah's heart sank. She could feel the dread crawling up her spine, wrapping around her throat like an invisible hand. I don't understand," she stammered. "You don't need to," Hector said flatly, already standing up. He reached down and grabbed her chin, forcing her to look into his cold eyes. "Because I'm not the one making the decision anymore." He turned to his right, and for the first time, Sarah noticed the man standing quietly in the corner. Her breath caught in her throat. Time stopped. Damien Carter. The man who had disappeared 6 years ago. The man who should have been her husband. The man who abandoned her on their wedding day, yet now stood here like a ghost from her past. Her lips trembled as she whispered, That's impossible." Damien took a slow step forward, his sharp features made even more striking by the dim light. The warmth that once filled his gaze was gone, replaced by an iciness she had never seen before. "It's been a long time, Sarah," he said, his voice as cold as steel. Damien's cold smile didn't falter as he slowly stepped forward, hands tucked casually in his pockets, as if this moment had been carefully planned for years. Sarah felt her heart slam against her chest. "Hector," Damien said calmly, without taking his eyes off her, "the debt is mine now." Hector smirked with satisfaction and gave Damien's shoulder a firm pat. "Then it's settled. No take-backs, you know the rules." And just like that, Hector and his men walked out, leaving Sarah alone in the room with the one man she never wanted to see again. The door clicked shut. Silence. Damien stood there, powerful and composed, watching her like she was something he owned. Sarah's knees trembled as she slowly pulled herself up from the floor. She stared at him, breathless. "Why are you here?" she whispered, disbelief cracking her voice. Damien didn't blink. "I bought your debt," he said simply. The words came out like ice. "You bought it?" Sarah repeated, stunned. That's right. He took another step, close enough that she could feel the heat of his body and the coldness of his eyes. And since you can't repay me with money, you'll repay me another way. Sarah's stomach twisted. She backed away instinctively until her back hit the desk. What do you want in return? Damien's gaze darkened. He leaned in, voice low and unyielding. You are the payment. Sarah froze. Her breath caught in her throat as a wave of rage and heartbreak flooded through her. This was the man who had disappeared on their wedding day without a word? This was how he came back. She trembled, her voice aching. You abandoned me, Damien. You destroyed my life, and now you want to own me? Damien's hand shot out, catching her wrist, not with violence, but with terrifying authority. Careful, he warned quietly. I have no patience left for your stubbornness, Sarah. His next words cut deeper than any blade. You don't have money, and Hector doesn't forgive debts. This is your only option. Serve me for 6 months, or be destroyed. Sarah's heart shattered. Tears gathered in her eyes as her lips trembled. For the sake of her son, for his life, she whispered a single broken word. Fine. Damien's lips curled into a victorious, haunting smile. Good girl. He pulled a contract from his coat, placed it on the desk, and slid a pen toward her. Sign it and become mine. Sarah stared down at the contract in front of her, the words blurring as tears gathered in her eyes. 6 months. For 6 months, she wouldn't belong to herself, she would belong to him. Her fingers trembled as she reached for the pen. Damien didn't move, didn't blink. He simply stood there, watching her, tall, composed, terrifyingly calm. Shouldn't I at least read it first? Sarah whispered, trying to buy time, trying to breathe. Damien leaned in slowly, his voice brushing against her ear like velvet edged with a blade. Don't waste my time, Sarah. If you don't sign, I'll personally hand you back to Hector. Her heart stopped. Images flashed in her mind. Hector's grin. Her child's small, fragile body in a hospital bed. The debt. The blood. Her grip tightened around the pen. And then, with a shaky breath, she pressed it against the paper and wrote her name. S-A-R-H. Each letter felt like it was carving through her soul. When she finally lifted the pen, Damien exhaled quietly, like a man who had just won a very long battle. Good girl, he murmured. Before she could react, his hand slid to her shoulder, warm, heavy, possessive. She gasped at the sudden contact, instinctively trying to step back, but his fingers only tightened. There's nothing to be afraid of, Damien murmured, his tone low and dark. I won't force you, unless you make me. Sarah's heart pounded violently, her emotions a mess of hatred and heartbreak. She lifted her eyes, meeting his cold gaze, and for a brief second, she saw it. A flicker of something. Something that looked like painful longing, buried deep beneath the icy surface. Why do you look so scared? He whispered, almost taunting. I'm not scared, she shot back, though her voice trembled. A dangerous little smile curved Damien's lips. Really? Before she could answer, his mouth crashed down on hers, hot, hungry, unstoppable. Sarah's eyes flew open, her hands pushing at his chest, but he didn't back away. His kiss was vicious, demanding, and terrifyingly familiar. I've missed this, he breathed against her lips, his hand sliding around her waist. I've missed you, Sarah. 6 years, and I still crave you. Her mind screamed to fight. But her heart betrayed her. Damien's kiss deepened, and no matter how hard Sarah pushed at his chest, her strength melted beneath the weight of his mouth, heavy with possession and years of repressed longing. She wanted to hate him. God, she wanted to hate him. But the moment his hand slid to the back of her neck and pulled her flush against his body, her breath hitched. One kiss turned into two, then three, until the room felt too small to contain the storm between them. "Damien," she whispered, voice cracking. "Shoo!" His lips brushed over her cheek, down to the corner of her mouth. "I waited 6 years for this. I'm not letting you go again." Before she could argue, he lifted her easily into his arms. Sarah gasped and instinctively wrapped her arms around his neck, her heart pounding like a drum. He carried her deeper into the penthouse suite, past the hallway, into the bedroom. The lights were dim, the curtains drawn, but she could still see the shadows of his muscles flexing as he laid her gently on the bed. For a split second, he just stood there, staring down at her as if trying to memorize every detail. "You have no idea," he murmured, breath trembling, "how many nights I imagined this moment." And then his lips were on hers again, deeper, slower, filled with a hunger that bordered on desperation. Clothes were lost between anxious fingers and rushed kisses. Her soft cries filled the room as Damien explored every inch of skin he once called home. "I shouldn't," she panted, her voice breaking as he trailed kisses down her collarbone. "Damien, this is wrong." "No," he breathed against her skin. "This is ours, and I will take back what I lost." And when he finally slid into her, slow, deliberate, possessive, Sarah's resistance shattered completely. She cried out his name, and he held her, as if he intended to never let go again. One time became two, then three, until her body trembled with exhaustion and her voice was reduced to weak moans and breathless pleas for mercy. Only then did he finally stop. "You're mine, Sarah," he whispered against her ear as she drifted off in his arms. "And I'll never lose you again, even if I have to fight the entire world to keep you." She woke the next morning to sunlight streaming through the curtains. Damien's arm was draped around her waist, his breath warm against her shoulder. For one fragile second, it almost felt like a dream. But then reality snapped back. The contract, the debt, her sons. Sarah carefully slid out from under his arm, wincing at the soreness that lingered in her body. She dressed quietly, trying not to make a sound. Before she left, she placed a small note on the nightstand. "Damien, I have to go. Please don't look for me." With one last glance at his sleeping face, so peaceful, so deceptively gentle, she walked out of the room. She didn't know when he would come for her again, but she knew one thing. Sarah carefully slipped away from the bed and stepped into the quiet hallway of the hospital, her heart still heavy with fear. She had managed to hide the truth from Damien, until now. But the moment she reached the waiting area, she froze. There he was. Damien sat on the leather sofa, one arm stretched casually along the backrest, a glass of whiskey in his hand, and his dark, unforgiving eyes locked directly on her. "I'll ask you once," he said coldly, standing up. "Where have you been?" Sarah swallowed hard, setting her bag down slowly. "Home," she lied, trying to keep her voice steady. A bitter smirk lifted the corner of Damien's mouth. "Really? Funny, because you weren't at your house all day." Before she could react, he caged her against the wall, his arm blocking her escape. "You came back to me, which means you belong to me." His voice was dangerously calm. "You don't get to hide, especially from me." Her chest tightened with anger and fear. "You don't own my life, Damien." But he only leaned closer, staring into her soul. "If there's another man, I could make him disappear with a snap of my fingers." Sarah's eyes flashed in fury, but before she could respond, his lips crashed into hers, fierce and possessive. She struggled, pushed, yet her heart betrayed her again. A little while later, he pulled back slightly, breathing hard. "I don't have another man," she finally whispered, I just can't tell you everything yet. Damien paused. His fingers brushed across her cheek, softer this time. After a long silence, he spoke quietly. Then I'll wait. For the next few days, something shifted. He stopped being cold and started trying. Cooking breakfast. Soft smiles. Quiet apologies. Sarah didn't want to believe it, but the wall in her heart slowly began to crack. Until one night, the doctor called. Miss Sarah, it's about your son. Please come immediately. Believing Damien was asleep, she slipped out of bed and rushed to the hospital. But what she didn't know, Damien followed her. Hidden in the shadows, he watched as she walked into the pediatric ward and wrapped her arms around a little boy lying in the bed. Then another small boy ran to her, calling out, Mom! Damien's heartbeat stopped. 2 boys. Both of them with his eyes. He stepped forward, voice trembling. Sarah! She turned, her face pale, tears rising. Are they my sons? Her lips quivered. Yes, Damien. They're your sons. His knees nearly gave out. Why didn't you tell me? I wanted to, she whispered, tears falling. But you left me, and I was pregnant with our twins. I didn't know if I'd ever see you again. Damien's eyes filled with tears as he stepped to the bed and gently touched Daniel's little hand. Daddy, the boy asked softly. Damien broke. He fell to his knees and pulled both boys into his arms, whispering, I'm so sorry. I'm here now. I'll never leave you again. And for the first time since their cruel separation, Sarah felt her heart finally, slowly, begin to heal. But deep inside, she still wondered, will this new happiness last? Or will fate tear them apart once more? Sparkles, if you want to know what happens next in this emotional story, don't forget to subscribe and stay with us for the next episode. Broken heart, right arrow, red heart. She had to reach the hospital before he discovered the truth.